Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well today. And I am excited for this video. I actually decided to push it up. I was planning to schedule it for a couple of weeks, but because it's Accessibility Pride Month and everything, I actually decided to push it up and make it a subject of this month's one of this month's videos. I think this is like the only one I have. Yeah, it's the only one I have. The like, so it'll be just, this will be like the next, just somewhat of a bonus video, sort of reviews. Well, actually not really bonus. I'm gonna schedule it to come out, but at a time. But essentially, this is the next video that I have that is related to disability in one way or another. I think the rest of the books are not, unfortunately, as far as I can remember. Anywho, sorry about that. I am today going to talk about the importance of accessible literature. So please stick around and hear my opinions and all that fun stuff. I do have some other final thoughts I will be delivering at the end, because there is, upon consideration, there's technically one more thing that I will bring up that can technically work to some degree. It's going to be a great video. I really like this video. It looks like I am sick through this video. I do not remember this, but it looks like I am sick. So, pardon the coughing and the sniffling and all that fun stuff. Anywho, though, if you enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. If you would like to support me, my books are in the description, as well as my Ko-fi. And also, I offer beta reading services. If you are interested, feel free to email me or go to my Fiverr. Also, if you want to read some of my writing for free, my website is in the description, so feel free to subscribe to my blog. And with that out of the way, let us go to the regularly scheduled program for today. Okay, we're talking about a graphic novel today. And I will explain how I got my hands on this a little bit later on in this review. But I wanted to let you know we're talking about a graphic novel today, and I'm going to do I want to use this book as a jumping off point for another conversation, specifically about accessible literature and why it's important, and more specifically why visual literature is it's not inclusive to people like me. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But this book is a good jumping off point. So that is kind of what we're talking about. Before we begin, hello, I am Anexis. I am a blind author, content creator, and freelancer. If you are interested in any of those things, well, you can find a lot of links in the description. And also consider checking out my books if you want to see kind of where my writing goes. Right now, I have my debut fantasy book, which is the first in a series. It's called Daughter of Death, and it is a short story, and it's perfect for computers, I think. And then the next one is, I have a poetry collection out as well called Pieces of Me, which is 20 poems. And also good for computers. Honestly, I love writing short for that reason. I want to make something that's really good for computers, if I'm being honest, but also, like, I just like writing short. So if any of that interests you, feel free to check it out. It's available on all major retailers, or they're both available on all major retailers. Daughter of Death is not available on Amazon currently, but it is available on other places like Apple and Barnes & Noble in ebook and audiobook format. It's also they're both available also on my shop. Currently the poetry book is only ebook. I'm trying to figure out narrating at the moment. So it is currently available though in my shop. And if you want to get more information on or if you want to see more of my writing, you can also go to my website. Also linked in the description. And with that, let us begin the exciting part of this video. Here's a synopsis that Goodreads gives us. I have not read this synopsis, by the way. In a heartbreaking parting, a man gives his wife and daughter a last kiss and boards a steamship to cross the ocean. He's embarking on the most painful yet important journey of his life. He's leaving home to build a better future for his family. Shantan evokes universal aspects of an immigrant's experience through a singular work of the imagination. He does so using brilliantly clear and mesmerizing images. Because the main character can't communicate in words, the book forgoes them too. But while the reader experiences the main character's isolation, he also shares his ultimate joy. All right. Oh, that's actually a pretty good synopsis actually for the story. Thinking about it in that way, it actually kind of worked out. So, how did I get my hands on this? Now, this was interesting. The backstory for this was actually one of my favorites. So I want to start by saying, by the way, first, that I went to a high school that was a performing arts high school. And in said performing arts high school, I took a graphic novel unit. And in said unit, I wrote uh, I wrote a graphic novel script. I don't think I even have it. I don't think I have that. But I did write it, and it was kind of an interesting it was interesting because we got to learn how to write graphic novel scripts. That was my sophomore year, and we learned to what did we okay, we learned it was we had a short story unit, of course, but in that short story unit we had a sci-fi unit, and then after that we had a graphic novel unit, and then we had a screenwriting unit. And my teacher basically made it so that like we learned the graphic novel unit before we got to screenwriting. That way we kind of, I think, got the idea of the camera because of the way that the screen, because it's very it's like it's almost seamless to go from like the graphic novel unit to the shoot the to the screenwriting unit. Sorry, I'm still feeling the brain of being sick. Sucks. Anyway, it was pretty much seamless. And after that, I had tried to write, I think, some scripts at some point, but I kind of just stopped at that eventually, and I've just focused mainly on prose. But it was a really fun unit, and it was the first time I was kind of like introduced to the to the like the world of graphic novels. I knew that it was also the first time I kind of indulged in looking up superheroes and indulged in learning a little bit about comics and all that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing to note is that for the most part, most of it was not accessible to me, right? I was able to write it and I kind of understand it based on some of the stuff. I actually read the script of one of the Civil War graphic novel from Marvel, which also got turned into a movie, but it was the MCU and the like graphic novel / comics are nowhere near the same, so don't even compare them. But I got to read that, and I was able to write a report on it, I think, or something like that. So, but to be sure, it was there were definitely more pictures than anything else. But my teacher I think had made it accessible. But now fast forward a couple of years later, and I have had my experience with graphic novels has been interesting. Counting this, I can count that my experience with graphic novels and stuff like that in any comic, I can count my experiences in like one hand because there were about 5. Because the first time there was a podcast called Batman Adventures, and I'm pretty sure that some of that, it was basically the adaptation of some, like, I think at least a couple of them were the adaptation of some comics. I think a couple of the episodes. Another one was another Batman podcast called No Man's Land. Another one was someone actually reading out the script of a Daredevil issue on YouTube, but I cannot find that. Last time I looked for it, I couldn't find it. I'm pretty sure I recorded it and I still have it somewhere in audio. But the point being that if I look for it, I don't think I can find it anymore on YouTube. And it was like a couple of like Marvel employees because blind readers had reached out to them and stuff like that, and they had read it. Then the other one was the Sandman adaptations in Audible, and then the other one was Nimona. So also an Audible adaptation. So about 5 of these, about 5 things that I had access to of graphic novels, right? I wanted you to keep that in mind because that will come back later. And now, fast forward to 2024, and what happens is that I am taking a literature class, and our last like literature, the last thing we had to read was this graphic novel, and I had, because I didn't realize until it said it's the book had no words, and I'm like, what? And I had asked the professor, and he was like, oh yeah, I did not quite think this through, I'm sorry. And I'm like, it's fine. Well, if I can find a summary, it'll be fine. So going back and forth, and my professor asked me what I wanted, and I said a summary, but my professor did something better, and he gave me a full-on description of the stuff that was happening on pretty much each page. Now, I will not use these descriptions here. I will not read them out loud to you because I do not have permission to do so. But suffice it to say that through these descriptions, I was able to follow along with the story, and they were good enough for me to know everything that happens in said story. And it was great. So I got up at the descriptions, I read them, and I'm like, okay, I'm aware of what's happening in these 6 chapters. And based on that, I'm giving you my review. So first of all, I did enjoy this. This was a really interesting story. It's the kind of old-fashioned immigration story, but with like a happy ending and everything. And it ends in a really sweet way. I really like the fact that it seems to be, I consider it a bit of a fantasy, because it doesn't necessarily, because it doesn't feel entirely like real life. I mean, there are some fantastical things in there, like there's there's a dragon at some point. There's like a phone booth that seems to be connected to a balloon, from what I remember, and takes you places. So there are definitely fantastical elements to it, and I really like that it was kind of it was an immigration story, but like but seemingly in a fantasy setting. And I think it was like it was a really interesting way to do it, because like I usually read for escapism most times, right? Even fantasy, like I read fantasy for escapism, but it cannot be denied. It can't be denied, though, that fantasy is also a great way to explore what's happening in our real lives. I mean, I have a fantasy romance that I'm currently editing, or part 1 of, and also I'll be editing part 2 soon. But basically, this fantasy romance focuses a lot on some of the things that I basically I have gone through. Like it tackles to some degree, maybe not like a big thing, but it does touch on ableism. It touches on some of the education experiences I had in a specific school when I was younger, though I exaggerated it, and also got some inspiration from Freaks, which is another thing I really liked. Another an Audible original I really liked. So, I got some inspiration from that and inspiration from my life, and kind of like smashed it together, and fun explorations occurred, right? So that is a thing. Like, you can use fantasy to explore the lives in real world, and in this case, it explores the immigration journey and the fact that you had to leave people behind, and what kind of happens in when you immigrate to a different country. It's the kind of thing that I know that people who immigrate, whether for what in whatever avenue that they use, they go through some of these universal hurdles. Like their family is in another country, and they have to send them money, and they have to do their best to communicate with them. But also, they know that they have to leave in order to provide them with a better opportunity. And I understand the story, and I appreciate it for what it is. I think the main character was really, really interesting. I will say the only thing I actually no, I wouldn't say I struggled with this. I would say that it's a different experience reading this the way I did throughout reading prose. That it is not easy to tell. For me, it wasn't necessarily easy to tell the character's arc. I guess you can say, like, because when he arrives at the place that he's at, he ends up, he starts slowly settling in. Like he and another person actually communicate. Other people communicate in their own way, and he learns about the reason other people came to this place, and it's like a bunch of different cultures, and we get to kind of see them interact basically. And I like it. I liked it a lot, but I will say that it is a bit more difficult to tell character arcs from like this than reading for me than reading prose. But I also appreciated this for what it was. And it was a journey story, and I like the ending when like we got to see the daughter and the next generation and all that stuff. It was her as the next generation. It was really sweet. So all that said, having loved this experience, I'll say this: I enjoyed this a lot. Now let's talk about the accessible literature part. I am someone who advocates for it. It's why I often highlight things like Bookshare in some of my writing updates, and why I was really, really into getting my books into Bookshare, and why I'm just like, okay, I want to get it into Bookshare. And for me, that was one of the most important parts of my publishing, right? I became an avid reader because of Bookshare, so in a way it's me giving back. But Bookshare also made a lot of books that probably wouldn't have been extremely accessible throughout high school actually accessible. Because the point is, I would have had to probably figure out how to get it in Braille, probably get my TBI to get the book for me somehow in physical Braille or whatever. I would have had to do a whole lot of different things in order to in order to like actually be able to read. And I will say, I am not a physical book reader. I'll probably only read one book in physical Braille, and that's because it was a gift, and it's only one book. It's not a bunch of volumes, right? And I'm not a physical book person. I am more of an e-reader person or an audiobook listener. Because what happens with in books in Braille, and this is another thing I find purely annoying with Braille books, is that depending on the kind of books, it's not just going to be one book. It could be 3, 4, 5, 6 books. And these are all volumes of this, and they follow the same book, but they're all volumes, and they each have a certain amount of pages, and you have to find out where you were at and all that stuff. And that is one of the things that's the most annoying about Braille books, is that the volumes. Like my textbooks were at least 30 books. And for the record, not all of them were used. Not all of the pages were used, but a lot of them, they were at least 30 books. I specifically remember that with my math and even the English textbooks. It was at least 30 books. And you have to find space for all of that. So I did not necessarily enjoy reading before Bookshare came along, and I was able to, or came along into my life anyway, and I was able to download books and read them in my display. And that was how I was able to read my books, and it was great. It was the best. I was able to actually be like, okay, I can download as many books as I want and I can read them. And after that, I became an avid reader. And I was able to, I downloaded Ella Enchanted, and that made me an avid reader after that. And I wanted to read everything Gail Carson Levine, so that was like my avenue, like my big thing. But Bookshare was the avenue that I could get those books through, and it was accessible to me. I could get it in Braille. Technically, also Bookshare has an audiobook format. And then it led me to other things. I will say I was not an audiobook fan as a teenager. I became an audiobook fan as an adult. But it was like my library, my 24/7 library, because I was able to download books at 3 a.m. and I still am able to do that. But the point is, though, that without Bookshare, I would not have been. I do not believe that I would have been the avid reader that I am today, and I do not think I would have had access to the books that I do today. Today, I have access to many, many books thanks to Bookshare and a bunch of other services. But Bookshare was the beginning. So, for me, giving my book to Bookshare or donating my books to Bookshare has become a one of the things that I try to do as much as possible. I did it with my first book, and I did it with my second book. Although my second book, I'm still waiting because I emailed them. It was supposed to come out on June 4th, but I ended up deciding to release it early. But basically, my I did send it to them, and I'm waiting for a response. But the point is, though, that I am doing that. I am trying to make my book as accessible as possible. Hence why I also put the audiobook on YouTube, on both of my channels, which means that you can listen to my books on Bookshare. And you can also listen to them here on YouTube. You can read them in Braille on Bookshare, and you can also listen to them here. I also, when I distribute the books, have made it, because Smashwords, they distribute to libraries. I made it cheaper for libraries. Originally, I was trying to make it free, and only some places make it free for the library. But other places do not accept free, even though they distribute to libraries, and they'll still give me, they made it like 99 cents. I noted for my poetry book. So I ended up just making it 99 cents. I'm probably going to do the same for the ebook for Daughter of Death Again. I'm probably going to change it to 99 cents. But the point is that I am trying to do that because I would like libraries to have access to my book, and I don't want them to pay extra to do that. So I made it 99 cents or free, depending on where I'm at. And that's kind of where I have landed. I am trying to, with my publishing, I am trying my best to make my books as accessible as possible. And every time graphic novels are reviewed, I like the idea of graphic novels. I always want to try to read them, but I have to depend on other people kind of telling me what it was about, or giving me a summary, or giving me, or things like that. And it's not the same. So yes, it's a bit exclusionary. it's not an inclusive medium for me. Because yeah. And part of the reason I try to make my book accessible is because I believe that literature should be accessible to everyone, no matter what it is. So I try to keep it so that I can make it. I try it so that I can make it accessible. I do my best. I've done my best, and I want to make it accessible because I think I got accessible literature. I got the books were accessible to me as a teenager, and I want my book to be accessible to other people. But also the other reason that it is important to make literature accessible to the best of your ability is that you don't know what accessibility issues other people might have, and how they do their things. So, for example, I do not like, or when I tried it about a year or so ago, I did not like the Kindle app. I bought a book from there. I did not like that. I did not like it. I bought it because it was the only way I can get this book for class, I did not like the way that I had to do continuous read because I couldn't entirely read the way I'm used to, which is like scrolling. And I prefer scrolling over continuous reading because it's too many things to go through. But I did not like that. However, I also know you can read it through the Echo, which is also not going to be as fun. But you can do it. But the point is, that's not something I liked. That's not something that I felt was accessible, personally. But eventually, hopefully, it will be. But the point is that the not so far still, even there is still a lack of accessibility in mainstream products. Some people do, some places do make it accessible, others don't, and you still have to search. You still have to try to see what's accessible. Technically, even when products are out and when people say it's accessible, you still have to test them as a customer to see if they actually are accessible. And sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, and then you have to move on. It's always kind of like a game of, I call it like a game of jump rope, where it's like if you're lucky, you'll actually jump where you're supposed to, and it will like work out. But if you're not, well, it sucks, but it's not accessible. And it's kind of like it's like you're playing jump rope with every product, not just books. It's like you're playing jump rope with every product. But for books, I hate that it's not accessible all the time for books. And while there are a lot of ways you can still get books, like the public library, you can get the Libby app, which I found to be pretty accessible. I'm still mad that I'm still a little upset though with Libby as well, because I can't control my speed anymore. Yeah, I'm mad. I'm mad about that. I can't control my speed anymore. I used to be able to do that. I don't know what the hell Libby did, but now I can't control my speed, and I'm mad about it. There's Audible. The Audible app specifically is extremely accessible. I know that they also have it in the Victor Reader Stream devices, though I don't have a Victor Reader Stream. I personally find myself I don't need it anymore, so I don't buy it. But also I don't like the way the many hoops you have to jump to get Audible on Victor Reader Stream. I don't like that at all. So yeah, then there's that. There are other book subscription services, as well as you can get the book, generally speaking, on like Amazon, like as ebooks, or as print books, or however you want to get it. There are technically a lot of ways that you can now get books, but accessible literature is more than that. I think it's accessible literature also means that whatever way you get it needs to be accessible to you, and that specifically means getting it in a way that that you are able to read it in whatever way that it's available to you, in whatever format you need it in. And I don't think we are there yet. I really don't think we're there yet, but it is important that, to me as an author, to try to get us to like get my book there. Hence the things I have tried. Bookshare allows readers to get the book in a bunch of different formats. You can get it as a Word document. You can get it as a Braille Ready format, or BRF. You can get it as a DAISY file. You can get it as an audio file. Hence, the audio file will be read by a robot, but you know what? It's still audio. You can get it that way. You can get it as an EPUB. You can get it a couple of different ways, and it gives you formats that you can absolutely use, which I really appreciate. So that's one of the things that I find that's great. But other places will not necessarily give it to you that way. At least I don't think they will, unless I guess unless they formatted it a certain way and you're able to get it that way differently. I would think that you're able to do it, but it would probably require, you'd probably have to, I'm not sure what you would have to do to get it a certain way from these places. And hence why I don't think right now, I think literature is accessible in, like, you have many ways to get it, but I don't know how accessible it is for you to read it in the ways you might want to. Like, for me to read let's say I buy a book on Apple Books. For me to read it, I would either read it through the screen reader or connect the display to my phone as a second avenue to read it that way. And what I want is to be able to get my book and read it without having to do all these hoops. And so far, that's not entirely there yet. And it is important to make your literature, your books, as accessible as possible, because with accessibility, you also reach more people. So if you're not looking at it in any way, if you're not looking at it with uh, as like an author who cares about accessibility to literature, look at it as a market thing, because you expand your market the more accessible you make your books. You expand your reach, which means you can reach other audiences from other places, as and from other walks of life, who would absolutely read your book if it was accessible to them in whatever way they can get it. So it, consider that, I think, and see if that is something, like, if anything, if that's something you would even consider, even if you are not someone who champions this. It is a market opportunity that could potentially help you champion this. It is important, I think, to get your book out to as many people as possible. And accessibility is a great way to do that because everybody benefits from accessibility. I mean, um, the screen reader is something I use to read a book or to read my screen. But if you, for some reason, don't want to look at your phone, you can turn on your iPhone screen reader and have it read to you. You can also use that kind of text to speech to edit. See, it benefits everybody. It really does. Now, how this applies to graphic novels is kind of an interesting one, because graphic novels, again, I do think, I consider it excludes people like me who cannot see. We don't get to enjoy the graphic novels like these our sighted peers. We don't get to do that. We might be able to do that now with Be My Eyes, but it's still not accessible enough because you have to take a picture of each individual page, and that is not fair. Now, is it? That is not fair. So, like, it's a good workaround. You can get if you get if you get the images of a graphic novel, if you take the picture, if you do all this stuff, it's a workaround. You can use Be My AI, which is basically a part of Be My Eyes. Be My Eyes being a company that has like volunteers basically helping blind and visually impaired people with pretty much whatever they call for. But again, it's volunteers, so they're not necessarily trained. They're just happy to do stuff for you and want to help you. So keep personal things out of there. But point being, though, the point being is you can't. It's not accessible enough to just keep. You have to take individual pictures and get descriptions, and then go from there. And then, what if you're not able to finish in like one day because you're taking individual pictures? If you don't have a way to mark the page that you were at, you have to start again. It's not an accessible thing. It's a workaround, but it's not accessible because it takes forever. It will take forever. And if you don't have good camera skills, it's worse. You can theoretically use another app called Seeing AI or even Envision AI. You can use one of those apps. Seeing AI, if you put for a document, tells you to hold steady when it reaches and it can see stuff, and it will do it. But again, we still have the problem that it will take forever because you also don't know. You have to start from the very beginning because you don't know where page 1 is. So you have to start from the very first page and figure out if you figure out whether the book is like if you're holding it the right way. You have to figure out too many things in order to. It's what I'm saying. Even with the technology now, to get a graphic novel for someone like me, and from what I can see, it would still be a lot, right? And that doesn't make it accessible. That gives me extra work to do to read your book. And after that, I don't want to read it. That's too much work for me to want to read a book. I want to be able to read your book. And this kind of like picture books and graphic novels and comics exclude people like me from the audience. It's not for made for people like me. Things like manga, kind of the same. I When I want to know anything about the manga of an anime I like Dragon Ball, I depend on content creators like Geekdom 101 to summarize them for me. It's not fun. It's really not fun because I have to then I actually remember actually doing a super chat and thanking him for it in one of his live streams because I'm like, I can't read it, but thanks to you, I can kind of experience it. Was like the basics, like thank you, like thanks to you, I actually get to know what's happening because I'm not gonna be able to do that. I can't actually read it, so it is thanks to you that I know everything that happens in the manga whenever I'm watching, which it's just like it is not fun for me. And you know why this isn't fun? Because it is basically like what I used to do. It is the same workaround I used to do before I knew audio descriptions, where audio description was a thing, and it is still the same workaround I do when shows are not audio described. Hint, hint, Dragon Ball. Oh yes, it's coming back to that. It's also coming back to other shows too, like The Flash, because I never got. I don't think The Flash is audio described here in the U.S. Last I checked, it wasn't audio described. And a bunch of other shows. But what I used to do for those is when I was interested in a series, I used to type in the series name, maybe a season or whatever, in or episodes, and then Wikipedia. And Wikipedia tends to have these episode recaps, and they summarize everything that happens. Now, the reason I used to do this is because sometimes there are visual things that happen that I could theoretically miss. And you know what? In Dragon Ball, I actually did. When I looked at in Dragon Ball Super specifically, I did. When I looked up in one of the episode recaps, apparently there was a part in the episode where someone got defeated, and one of the characters, Gohan, saw because he was the one that defeated the opponent, found a necklace with or a locket with like the picture of this man and his family, and that gave the episode more emotional resonance that, hey, I didn't get to have, but I had to see that afterward with an episode recap. This is not good. It's not good that I have to do all this workaround in order to enjoy what everybody else gets to enjoy. It's honestly, it's hurtful. I'm the person that has to do all this workaround in order to even get a glimpse of the things that you get to know via having your eyes. I don't get the luxury. I don't get the luxury of being able to pick up a graphic novel and say, I want to read this graphic novel because I'm interested. I have to look for other sources like audio adaptations and other people summarizing it and Wikipedia plot summaries. Do you see where the problem is? There is a problem here. And I don't know what the solution for this is. The only things I can think of for graphic novel related things is, well, for one, there are two solutions I have in mind. The first one is that if you have written an actual script for a graphic novel, release it. Release the script, and then I could read it. Or other people in my in my same dilemma can read it. Hold on, you guys. For some reason, our bestie Siri decided to start talking. And by the way, bestie is in sarcasm. I don't like her. She's gotten worse. Anyway, release the script if you have it. If you wrote a script, release it, even if it's for sale, but release it so that people like me, people who are totally blind, people who can't read, who can't pick up your graphic novel and just indulge in it, can. I think it's a fair request that if you did write it, you would release it. I think it's fair to ask for that because it makes the literature accessible to us. And I'm not just saying it for graphic novels, I'm saying it for things like manga as well. That if there is a way, if there is a script, release it somehow so that other people can actually enjoy it. And then the second one is It's a bit more out there, but I'm not sure how this would work. But basically, since audio description is a growing industry, I would love it if either a company or someone or whatever could like actually get these graphic novels and actually like do a description of them, like an audio description of them, like a or something. And get audio description in somehow involved in something like this. I think it would kind of work because it's a visual medium, and audio description is for visual medium, so I think it would work out pretty well. And because of that, I think it's fair to say that audio description would be able to make something happen with that, and I would love that. Those are the only two solutions that I can think of, but I just think that accessible literature is important, and I don't think all literature is entirely accessible to people like me, and who and other audiences that might actually really enjoy it. But let me know your thoughts. I really want to know what you think about it. These are just me kind of throwing stuff around because um I kind of wanted to talk about it and see where you go from there, and how you feel about it. I would like to have a conversation if you have it. I'm sorry, if you have an idea of what you might have, and what you think about it, because I think, oh, what thoughts you might have, I'm sorry, and what you think about it, because I think this is important, and I think that while I don't have all the answers, I wonder if anyone else has any ideas, because I would love for literature like this to be more accessible. I would love to get into visual literature and actually enjoy it and be able to talk about it. But when it's not accessible to me, how am I supposed to get involved, and how am I supposed to enjoy that kind of literature? Besides actually taking my phone and taking a picture of everything and feeding it to an AI to describe it, and then ask it other questions if I have any other answer, if I have any questions, and then repeating the process over and over and over again, which will take me hours, and I may not even get everything done. How else would I be able to do that? Or of course, the other one is having a sighted person describe each picture to me and read any narrative that's there. But that also takes a while, and that also will take someone else's time. So tell me, how else am I supposed to indulge in literature like this when it's not inclusive? Because that's the one thing I don't like. I appreciated what my professor did for me, because I was actually able to enjoy it with the rest of the class, and it felt amazing. But I would love other people to do the same, to give other people the same treatment. I have heard of things like audio comics now are a thing, but I don't know a lot about them, and it does just, I don't know. I don't know, you guys. Again, I appreciate what was done for me, because it made it so that I could be a part of the class in that way, and it felt great. But I would love for the broader uh like the broader world, and or poet or publishers or whatever um to do something similar. That would be my request. Anyway, let me know what you think. I hope that this was at least interesting to you, and at least this last part of the conversation. And if you can, I would absolutely read The Arrival. By the way, I really would. I think it's interesting. So anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I've been rambling on for much too long, and it's coming from someone who made a 3 hour and some change video before. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. Okay, hello. Welcome to the other side, where I have more final thoughts. Yes, this video is long enough, but I think you know me enough that I enjoy yapping, so I'm thinking you're stuck here for the long haul. Okay, so as pointed out in the video, everyone pretty much has different accessibility needs. What one person will find accessible, another will not. So, and that includes, by the way, people in the blind community. So my friend might find TikTok pretty accessible app to use. But until a couple of years ago, when I actually visited it, I haven't gone back. I did not find it an accessible experience. But she does. Last I checked, she said she thinks it's gotten better. I have not actually checked to confirm that. There are people I also know who are blind that actually do love the Kindle app and can use it. I find that app atrocious. So just that's important for me to say, because there is technically a third solution to make graphic novels accessible and picture books and stuff like that. And honestly, this is one I would actually use. However, it is still a lot of effort to do. Okay, let me try to explain. So as I've gone on about Bookshare, this is where it kind of comes up. So Bookshare is also has graphic novels. Usually because the way that works is because one of the formats is Daisy text with images. So in that specific area, if there are images, they will transfer. You can read it through the document. So that kind of works out. There is Daisy text only and Daisy text with images. So keep that in mind as I explain. So because that is a thing that if people can see, they should be able to download it and read it. However, for my purposes, because I can't see, there is one more option. And I did it and I was able to confirm that it does work. However, I haven't actually tried reading an entire children's book or graphic novel to see how I feel. I haven't tried the experience. I plan to eventually, but I haven't gone ahead and tried the full experience. So one of the formats that you have is as a Word document. So essentially what you can do is download from your phone or your computer or whatever. Stop. My echo has activated. Okay. You would download the graphic novel as a Word document. Then you would put it through Pages, and once you open it in Pages, and once it's open in Pages, you have the option to export the Word document, and then you can export it as images. And once it's exported and saved to your camera roll, you can then share it through Seeing AI, Envision, or Be My Eyes, or Ira's Access AI, and get descriptions and ask clarifying questions and so on. And that is a way that you can technically read graphic novels. However, this is still kind of, again, jumping through hoops, again, to even read a graphic novel, because this would need you to be very tech savvy. Even if you are tech savvy, know that you can actually export documents from Pages as image documents. Also, it would require you to essentially have a smartphone to even get this done. You would also, if you have the graphic novel in PDF, last I checked, you can't open a PDF through the Pages app. You can open it in the Files app, but last I checked, I couldn't open one in the Pages app on my phone, at least. So you can't actually take a PDF and do that unless you are able to convert that PDF document into a Word document, which you usually can do. I think you can open a PDF through Word, and there's a part, and there's a part that you should be able to convert basically a PDF to Word. Now, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how visually that looks, but that's technically a way. So you would still be jumping through hoops because it involves you essentially using the tools in that way, and involves you to know that, and you would have to be able to actually have a smartphone or something or like the app or whatever in one way, shape, or form to even get that done. I would assume you can do this stuff on the Mac as well. I don't know if you can do it through, like, say, iCloud Drive online. I don't know if that's something you can do. So there are still a lot of ways. There's technically a lot of hoops that you are jumping through just to even get that done. And also, when you sit down to read it, again, you have to go picture by picture and have Be My Eyes and or Seeing AI or whatever app you use to describe each image in turn to you. And that means that you actually have to sit there and actually dedicate a lot of time to it. It's kind of like, and also dedicate a lot of brain power. It's kind of like, for me, this feels like when I watched redo of Healer in with subtitles, where I actually couldn't multitask because I had to pay extra attention to voiceover reading me the subtitles and actually understanding what was happening, even though the anime was 12 episodes long. Yeah, it was exhausting. So that's kind of what you have to do in that way. But also, even the other part too, if you have a physical graphic novel and you actually want to read it and you can't find it digitally and get it in formats that are compatible for you to then put it in like through it and convert it to images to get it described. The other part is that if you're taking pictures of the graphic novel, one of the things you have to make sure is if the pages are double-sided. So if you'll find and if it's just one page, or if you'll be able to find it on both sides of the page, illustrations. So it's still like kind of exhausting. It would be very exhausting to read something like this. I'm now willing to put in the effort since I can get an accessible digital version from Bookshare. That's the only reason I would ever put in effort to read a picture book or a graphic novel. However, again, you're still jumping through the hoops. It's not entirely accessible. Accessibility means that what you are trying to do is seamless. It shouldn't be that many challenges. I should be able to simply say, I want to read this graphic novel, click on the thing and open it, and I should be able to read it. Accessibility is seamless. It's not it shouldn't complicate your life. It should make things as easy as possible. And that is the problem currently with visual literature that I can see. It's not inclusive to people like me. I guess it's in the name, technically speaking, visual literature. But it would be great if it is. And though we have the tools to make it to like DIY our own accessibility, we deserve a more seamless experience that these tools unfortunately do not give us, because we still have to go through the hoops to make it work. So that is my rant. I really hope that you found this interesting and useful, and also if you hear talking, that's in the kitchen, but I really hope you found this interesting and useful. Give me your opinions in the comments. If you are blind and you would like to read a graphic novel, are you someone who is willing to put in that effort? Are you someone who would actually do this? I am sort of the person that would, if I can get an accessible digital form. However, it would depend on how much energy I have. I'm currently dealing with sleep problems and all that stuff, and my energy is essentially like enough to leave me functioning, but not enough to just like stretch it out to do as much as I would like. Honestly, it's kind of debilitating. So no, it's not fun. It's not fun for me as a person who has sleep issues to essentially try to get a what is that called? Like a that kind of stuff. It's not fun. It is incredibly irritating. So yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this rant. If you did, consider subscribing and turning on notifications bell, and check the description for ways to support me, including subscribing to my blog and getting my books and beta reading services and all that fun stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video. I think I'm gonna go back on the original schedule that I have on, and then the next long video I believe will be Legends and Lattes, which technically I have like 3 reviews, but for each book. But I'm just going to put them all together into one long video like I did for Letters of Enchantment. I think that'll be the next long video. I have a couple of shorts that I'm going to eventually release eventually, but I think I'm going to try to get through the long videos first and then figure out the shorts. That just makes sense, I think, honestly. But with that, though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Until next time, consume stories. Bye!